Hey guys, hope you're having a good day today. Um, I'm down here doing water changes like I do every week, and got to thinking to myself, since I do water changes every week, make a video every week, and a lot of times I talk about fish, um, I'm just gonna make Thursdays, or in this case Friday. Quarantine has got us a little out of whack on our days, and I didn't get down here yesterday. I was busy cooking with everybody being sick to do water changes, so I missed today. But anyhow, I'm gonna do when I do water changes. That'll be the day dedicated to talking about fish things, um, keeping fish, aquariums, what to look for. And today, I want to talk about um, groups online groups for fish keepers. I belong to several of them, at least a dozen, on Facebook, and they're awesome. I mean, I have no real qualms with any of them. You get to see lots of beautiful fish, get ideas for your tanks, find out where people got things. If you see some plant you really like, there's some Anubis you've never seen before, and you go, oh, I want one of those. You can ask the fish keeper where they got it, and they may be in another part of the world, but they can at least tell you where they got it. But there is one thing I've seen that's not been, in my mind, it's kind of a problem. And I don't think it's something that could ever be corrected, but it's still a problem all the same. Is newer fish keepers, and by newer I mean like even within the first year, and sometimes even experienced fish keepers, when they run into a problem, they ask online, on their group, which is supposed to be like their club. Here is my situation, and they either take a picture of the fish that's sick, or the plants that are dying, or something's just not right, and they get 40 responses, which isn't uncommon to get that many responses. And out of those 40 responses, a few of them are heckling you, or heckling the new person, or they everybody has a different opinion on what it could be, what it should be, and I mean, there's always one or two that ask good questions back to the person who is asking the initial question, to try to truly help them. But I think the problem here is we're flooding the new person with so much information and different things, and so many different possible causes, that I think it's leading to more confusion for a newer keeper. So, that being said, I have some ideas of what we could do, or what the new person could do. When it comes to water, well, let me start by saying, when it comes to water, I don't add anything to my tanks. Now, we've been fish keeping now for a decade, and I have never once added anything to my tanks for the water. I used well water when we first started and lived out in the country, and then for over 8 years I used city water while living in Columbus, and I've lived in Newark for a year and a half, and I've never used anything to treat my water when I do water changes. That's just not a thing. Sorry, I got to keep an eye on the tank. I drained it kind of way down on accident. Getting sidetracked. Don't ever get sidetracked when doing water changes. It can be disastrous. Um, but anyhow, so I don't, and now I'm to the point where I don't even really ask questions at the local fish. But it's been so long since I've lost a fish, other than to old age. Most of my fish I've had since forever ago, years at any rate. But you have to, if you think you have a water problem, the first step should be, when you first start fish keeping, you should always have a test kit of some sort. Now, the in my opinion, one of the better test kits. I'm not going to say it's the end all beat all, and I'm sure there's 12 people that would argue this, but I have an API master kit. It checks for ammonia, it checks your high and low pH, it checks for high and low pH depending on what you're keeping. It checks for nitrates and nitrites. There's also Tester makes test strips that check those also. Those are really good. I just having more than one tank. There's not a lot of them in the tube that they come in, and I go through them. Used to go through them kind of quick. Now I don't test my tanks so much anymore unless I see a true issue. I have other ways of looking to see if there's a problem, and then if I think there is a problem, I test, like the algae in my tank. If it dies back, I know I'm doing good. If it starts to grow heavily, then I know that there's something in there that's feeding it, that's causing it to grow, so I'll test to see what's going on. Now, that being said, they're wonderful tests. Wonderful. But they don't tell you everything. Yeah, I mean, I have KH and GH, which is the hardness levels of your tank for your water. And I test for those. But there might be a few things that, well, I know there's a few things you can't test for. So, your first step should be take your water to the fish store. I mean, even PetSmart tests water. But your local fish store, your true fish store, most of them do tests, you know, to kind of tell you what's going on with your water. If you're not certain or you don't know, I mean, experience is the key to anything. And, you know, in the beginning, you don't have any experience. It's just a fact of life. Sorry. So you can go down to your local fish store, local watering hole, and ask them to test your water. Another thing, especially like when I first moved to Newark from Columbus, I looked on the city's website. They have a listing of everything that is in the water. You know, whether it's something they treat with or not. And that gives me a general idea of what I'm going through. That way I know in advance, you know, what I'm kind of in for. And I do that more when I move into a new town. But you'll also find that with water, especially city water, they change how they filter the water and what chemicals they add for the season. So twice a year. Very rarely does that change, but when you're first starting fish keeping, twice a year. They do it in the spring and in the fall. It's kind of like gas. They add more additives in the winter to help your fuel system than they do in the summer. There are different additives. You know, there's winter gas and there's summer gas. But anyhow, so that's one thing to look at. If your fish is sick, you want to take good, clear pictures of it, if at all possible, when you go to post it on Facebook. That way, people can get a good look at what's going on. Now, you may not get the right answer, even with 40 answers, because it's hard to tell what it is. And even if you know what it is, and you get 20 different answers, go to the fish store, go online, read books. I have got books for everything. I've got books on illness for fish. I've got books on plants, books on just different types of fish. I've got an encyclopedia also for plants and fish. You know, books are knowledge. Back when I started fish keeping, 40 years ago, there were no Facebook groups, there were no blogs, there were no sites for your group, for your fish groups. I didn't even know there was fish groups when I first started in the hobby. I wasn't that informed. It was a lot harder to get into hobbies when I was younger than it is now. But read, look up articles on Facebook or on Google. Ask your questions on Facebook. Just be leery because you're going to get a lot of answers. I guess is what I'm getting at. Worst case, or you say you can't do that, call your fish store. Go to your local fish store and see what they say. Ask them what they think, what their opinion is, what their thought is. They can also give you the best remedy. I mean, they could probably sell you the best remedy for it. That being said, you should always want to treat your fish. But if your fish is sick, what caused it? You don't always want to just cure your fish. You want to find out the root cause of it. Was it your water? Is it a stressful environment? Um, is there not enough places to hide, stressing the fish out? Do you have too many fish in your tank? Do you have aggressive fish with non-aggressive fish? All those could be possibilities. So make sure you're looking to see what the root cause of the problem is, along with the problem. Excuse me. Now, when it comes to treating your fish, some basic recommendations, just all the way around. Medicines are good. I primarily treat with salt. Um, it does several things. It agitates the fish's scales, which don't use salt with scaleless fish. You can kill them. But what it does is it agitates the scales, causing the slime coat to react. That's the body. That's their body's kind of antibiotic, and it usually clears them up in a few days. But don't do it in the main tank, um, unless you're keeping monster fish. Just keep a spare 10-gallon tank around, and if possible, keep it running and keep it empty. Just maybe some gravel in it, not a whole lot more, and keep it as a hospital tank. If you're keeping nano fish, you can probably even get away with a 5-gallon on your desk in your fish room or in your bedroom, whatever. You want to separate that fish. Because what happens is this. What could happen. I'm not going to necessarily say it will happen every time, but it could happen. That stressed out fish gets ick. I use ick because it's the most common thing for fish to catch. Now, there are some other things, parasites and stuff like that, but so ick travels and it can decimate an entire community. Even if the other fish don't show it, then all it takes is one little molecule that you can't see because your tank isn't microscope, have a microscope attached to it, and boom, every fish is sick. But that being said, remove the fish from the tank, put it in the hospital tank. If you're going to use chemicals, sorry, I'm still filling a tank. Talk to somebody like at your fish store before you use chemicals to get the right chemical. And like I said, pictures are worth $1 million because not everything is treatable by the same medicine. At the same time, while your fish is healing, I use salt for almost all my fish, almost all of them, because they can handle it. Like my Raphael cat, I would not use salt with him. I would go a different direction to help him along. Although, knock on wood, he's not ever been sick. He just hangs out underneath his log and he's happy and content and eats. But almost everything else I use salt. Salt cures almost, at least in my experience, almost everything you could possibly think of. And I use aquarium salt, not table salt, not kosher, not canned, aquarium salt. It's processed differently, and the others use iodine, and that can kill your fish. There's too many bad things. Buy aquarium salt. It's not expensive. It doesn't take a lot. The other problem with treating an entire tank is if you've got a 55-gallon tank, most medicines require, a fair, like erythromycin. Let's just run with that one. You have to use, I believe it was 2 packs of that for 10 gallons. Well, if you've got a 50-gallon, you could easily, or even a 100-gallon tank, you could easily go through a couple boxes of that, maybe 3 boxes of that, in no time to treat one fish in a large tank. And that stuff's not cheap. And the aquarium hobby isn't horribly cheap to begin with. It's not expensive. It's what you make of it. I talked about hobbies earlier. It's what you make of it, but it can get expensive quick, and sneaky. But medicines are expensive. So I would recommend use Facebook as an optional tool. It's in your arsenal. Your groups are in your arsenal. Talk to the fish store first. Fish stores, that's all they do. They've pretty much seen it all. Most fish stores, true fish stores, are small enough that the owner is usually the one behind the counter, or at least he's there and you can ask him. Um, until you get a little time under your belt, at any rate. That's my opinion on it. Fish store, reading, even if you read it on Google, and then ask your Facebook group. There are so many different tools. I don't want any one person to have to rely on their Facebook group. If you can join a club, I know right now we're in a pandemic, so meeting face to face is a little hard. With the exception of a few clubs, most clubs are small. They're kind of intimate. You get to know the people. You can talk to them. The problem with social media is it's impersonal. It's impersonable. They don't know you. You don't get to know. How do you get to know everybody in a club when there's 5,000 members to the club worldwide? It makes it rough. So local fish clubs are a good source. Even if you join one now, with the way the pandemic's running, you can still talk to just a handful of people online. And you'll get an honest answer. You won't get 12 different answers and or some guy that's just being a troll, and being mean. And I think that's pretty much all I got to say about that. Once again, like I always say, do your research. Stay small, stay local. The guy in New York's water is not the same as the guy in Utah's water. The guy down the 2 cities away from you is probably not the same as what you have now. I love you guys. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. All right? Bye.